This time on Hobby Journeys, we're showing you what you need to get started in Killteam.
Hello, welcome to Hobby Journeys.
I'm Matthew and this is my dad.
So what we're doing here is we're going to continue our series where we're looking at how to get into Killteam. So as a beginner, what you would do to be getting into Killteam, because that is a thing we have done very recently, isn't it, Matthew?
Yeah. Only a few months ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah, so start of this year, we got into Killteam. We did a video which came out last week, but actually we filmed that about a month ago, which was talking about sort of how why you would get into Killteam. So what is good about it that would make you want to do that, and how you would go about doing it. Now the how we sort of skirted over a bit. It was just sort of musings really. I hadn't got a specific plan for it, so it was just really talk about what we had done in the first place. But I wanted to do a bit more of a structured video where we're going to talk about, for a beginner, what you are going to need, what is going to help you, what approach you take to get into Killteam, basically, what you need to go and buy, how to go about it, basically. Yeah. We had some comments on the last video from MDR Loz or something. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but go look at the last video. There's in the comment. Wrote very detailed comment telling us some information about sort of things that maybe we could have included and stuff like that. And actually, it was really, really well done, very well structured. Actually went into a lot of detail. Worth going back to our last video and having a read of that one if you're interested. It is a very good post.
The basics of what you'll need is a team, obviously. You need 5 to 10 units. You could either use a box or units you already have. You're going to need rulers for measuring distance, a set of rules and terrain, which you can improvise with what you have, and some dice.
So the other things you're going to need is someone to play and somewhere to play, obviously. So, and these things are going to influence really the next steps about how we go out getting those things. So obviously the someone to play, you might be lucky enough like me to have someone like Matthew who's just available to play with, or a friend who also wants to get into Killteam, or might already be into Killteam and might be able to support you a bit with, learning the rules and stuff like that. We had my friend Peter who gave us some demo games and showed us how to play, and has been chatting to me at lunchtime at work to give me some tips and so on. So if you don't have someone obvious like to play and you really want to get to Killteam, there are a lot of gaming clubs out there. Local to us. Peter runs a gaming club called Adeptus Arboricum in York in England.
Not very local to us though, is it?
It's
an hour drive.
It's local enough. It's probably not very local to any of these guys out here, but maybe some of them. But there are gaming clubs available. The best thing to do might be to contact your local hobby store and just ask them if they've got anything available there, if they know of anyone who's arranging sort of things like that, because there's a lot of options out there for finding someone to play against. There's somewhere to play. You can play at home, but that's which we do indeed. But you're going to need a bit more equipment for that, so you will need some terrain and a board to play on, or just a table. Whatever you've got really. Local hobby stores often have gaming tables that you can book to play on. They might even have some terrain you can use. Those sort of things available. Now, depending on what there is, what your circumstances are, it will depend what you need to get going with this. So there are a few different options for how to get into this. The first one would be to just buy a box team. Your Games Workshop issue these boxes. The boxes will have a team in that box, along with the various tokens you will need to play with that team. In combination with that, if you could download the app, and basically you have what you need to get going, so long as you have available to you someone else who has the terrain and so on for you to play on. Ultimately, if you go to a gaming club, they've probably got the terrain for you. So really, all you need is your team, and you need to have the have the app available to you. That is free to download. You could get that on Android or Apple, and although it contains a light version of the rules, it's not the most complicated version of the rules. This is a way to come at it. It's probably not the easiest way to come at it, but in terms that it's not an easy entry because the app rules aren't as they're not as good as a tutorial as they might be, and the teams might not be, which team to pick. That's a question. I mean, some good options are for a beginner that, that ultimately what you're not looking for is some of the more complicated factions who are very complicated or more stylized forms of play. I mean, some of them have ones where the different units have to work in tandem. A good example is the Reason Stepsis Mechanicus range, which comes with 2 tech priests and a load of servitors, and the servitors need to work in tandem with the tech priests. That's a little bit more complicated. That's an extra layer on top of the rules, and maybe for a beginner isn't the best place to start. Some good ones to start with. This is having perused various tier lists off of YouTube to get a view of what they thought were the most common factions to use, but good for a beginner. Common ones: Murderwing, Wrecker Crew, Death Watch, Space Wolf Scouts, Legionnaires, and Angels of Death, which is Space Marines. These are these are very typical ones that people tend to say are good for beginners. Ultimately, don't worry about what the meta is. I think, i.e., who the factions at the moment who are winning all the tournaments and so on. Really, when you get in start as a beginner, just go and have some fun. Have some fun with it.
I mean, also, any faction could be good in the right hands.
Yeah, exactly. And they just have their own styles of play. I mean, Games Workshop have recently put out a balance update, which they do every quarter, and they have said along the lines that that really they've tried to balance it so any faction could beat any faction. So that's the thing. There was talk when the Murderwing first came out that they were rather overpowered. Whether that's because Games Workshop are trying to push the latest thing by making it the meta faction so they can sell the miniatures. Maybe.
That's what every company does, though.
Well, yeah, that's what every company does. I mean, Games Workshop seem to be guilty of this. But, anyway, it's a thing. So, I would say grab a faction, have fun with it, and really what you're not looking for is one that's going to smash every faction coming, if that even exists. Really what you're looking for are the ones who don't have overcomplicated special rules for that faction. If you put, this option of just getting the app and a team, it's going to work well if you're heading down to a local hobby store. If you played 40k before, you've probably got things like terrain and so on. So you could also play this at home, probably because you can have the dice, the rulers. The rulers are basically, basically the same things that come in every other Games Workshop game. So if you have played 40k before, you've almost certainly got terrain you could use, rulers you could use, dice, etc. You've got what you need. The app will give you the rules and the data cards for the faction, and the team will be what you play with. So that's one option. Another option, which is probably the best one if your circumstance is that you have a clear person you want to play with. You've got a friend who you've talked into it, or you have a son who can make play. He doesn't get an option in the matter, or you get an Xbox ban.
Oh,
yeah, again. So this option would be to get the starter set. So there is a starter set available. That's the one. So there we go. So that's the Killteam starter set.
You didn't have it by your side. You used magic.
I've got a whole stack of stuff sat by my side.
He's lying. He used magic.
I used magic. Literally, I ordered it off the Games Workshop website. And it just appeared just there. Yeah. Anyway, so the starter set is a really good option because literally you are going to get everything you need in the box. It's going to give you two full factions. So you've got one faction, one kill team, which is Space Marines. So these are the Angels of Death. So it's giving you 7 models of whom you can field 6. To get the full possible combinations, you might have to make a couple more models. If you've done 40k for, you're going to have other Space Marines that probably fill out the other options available. But this basically gives you a complete faction out of the box. Or a complete team out of the box that you can play with. I mean, and it is tournament ready. You can. This is going to be playable at a tournament as is, out of the box, basically. Similar Plague Marines. Literally, there are. You get all the combinations just straight out of the box for these guys. So you've got 2 full factions here. Like I say, if you have a friend, then you therefore have a team each, straight out of this box.
You don't have any friends.
That's hurtful, Matthew, frankly, but and also not entirely true.
It's true.
You're also getting some terrain. It is card terrain, so you're not the best in the world.
We didn't even use it, did we?
No, it still hasn't been popped out for me because I had a load of existing terrain from having done 40k previously. We had the stuff from Imperium magazine, which is the I can't remember. It's all the Ruined City stuff, basically, which we'll get to, which is the Volcus terrain, which for Killteam, which is also a thing. Anyway, so you've got some terrain. It also gives you game boards to play on. You've got some dice. You've got the tokens you need. You've got a lot of stuff here to get you going, and in fact, everything you need to get you going. At a simple level, at least, you've also got starter handbook. That is the rules. What I would say is it is a simplified set of rules and not the most condensed, because what they're doing is there's a lot of these sort of things. So, sort of guides on how the rules work, tutorial sort of stuff. So it really is meant for a beginner to ease them in. Now, I found that quite useful when I first started, for about the first time we played. Which is sort of where I get to with it. I mean, this is great. You have got those two teams. Those teams are solid. You've got two good teams in there. And the price of this box, I mean, £70, which, if you then factor in the discount you might get at a local hobby store coming down, I think I paid 55 for it when I bought it. It's giving you it's giving you everything you need to get going at a really reasonable price. Kill teams themselves are going for sort of £35 to £40. So you're getting two of those plus the rules. Plus, and you get some nice, neat data sheets. So you're getting these rule overviews. So it's giving a slight rule summary. It doesn't have everything I would want on it, if I'm honest, but it's not bad. And then team sheets for the actual teams themselves. The downside is that I think you might find you outgrow the starter set quite quickly. Although the Angels, Death, and Plague Marine teams are pretty solid. You do find that you're going to want to move on to some of the spicier factions, probably within a few games of playing. The rules aren't the most complicated set of rules, so you're going to want to move on to something else like the core rulebook, which we'll come to a bit later on. But that is the proper, more comprehensive set of rules, also a bit more simplified. What was your experience of our first few games using the starter set, Matthew?
The games were quite fast-paced. They were quite simple, actually. There wasn't much going on other than shoot and take points. That's what I really enjoyed.
Yeah, it is quite simplistic. The rules are quite simplistic, aren't they? The factions themselves, I mean, one of the things I would say is that the Plague Marines are a little bit. I found the Angels of Death is a very straightforward faction to play. For me, of the factions that I've played with, I think the Angels of Death were probably the most sort of vanilla. In that, there wasn't much that was particularly, difficult to understand or too complicated.
They're very balanced, aren't they?
They are very balanced, because you've got some close combat guys, you've got some quicker guys, you've also got some guys who are going to be your, sitting back and shooting guys. So you've got a real good balanced mix. The Plague Marines, on the other hand, I'd found were a little bit more. They're very leaning towards getting in and close. Even their heavy weapon is shooting with an 8-inch range, so you've got to get in close to use it. Most of the units are a bit more close combat orientated, I tended to find. So they are, it basically is encouraging your style of play to be getting attacked. There isn't that much flexibility with it. So I found them a bit more difficult to play with, because you're a bit limited in your style of play with them in a way. Although, as I say, I am still really a beginner. So, I'm sure that expert players are finding great ways to play with them. For me, as a beginner, though, I found that it was trickier to play with them, because you were having to get up the field, and then you don't necessarily know the best ways to do that when you're first starting. So that's the starter set, and I would really say that is a really, really good way to get into the game. The main issue's just been, I don't think the Plague Marines were the best choice for that box, but fine, I guess. And also, you're probably going to outgrow it quite shortly and be looking to move on with some other stuff afterwards. With that, though, what you find is, if you went for that option A, which is to just buy a team and the app, if that is available to you, probably the team that you're selecting is probably one that you're likely to be picking when you move up a step. So actually, you're not wasting that purchase. Although I wouldn't say the starter set is particularly a waste, because most of the stuff in it is pretty useful.
Well, it gives you everything you need to first start,
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, the core rule, the rule book that comes with it, I didn't simply, or the starter rule book, or the, what do you call it, starter handbook, It's fine. I just found it, you're having to go past page after page to get the actual rules because they're not very condensed. The core rulebook is much more that way. Another option you could go with, which maybe isn't a good one, but is worth noting, is that every quarter Games Workshop are releasing a box. That box will usually have in a couple of teams and probably some rules and stuff like that. So for a good example of a bad one to buy as a beginner would be the Shadow Hunt box that came out quite recently. This is
come on, that's
this
what
is
I
that. You did buy that. So it's coming with, in fact, hang on, bear with me, please. There we go. That is Shadow Hunt. We have Shadow Hunt with it.
In the Shadow Hunt box, it has the Adeptus Sororitas and the Deathwing, which are, I don't think they're the best.
It's not the Deathwing, Matthew, is it? It's the faction that you like. It's the Murder Wing.
Is it?
The Deathwing are the Space Marines with the big guns. What's in the box, Matthew?
In the box, you get the Adeptus Sororitas and the Murder Wing. Yeah, I got it right this time.
There you go. So Matthew was really into the idea of getting the Murder Wing, so he will quite like them. So you could, if you bought this box, it is going to give you a couple of teams. You also get the data cards for that team, which are quite useful because they are giving you, the various bits of information about the team summarised on some cards. That can be quite nice to have. This one in particular wasn't particularly geared for a beginner. They do come with a couple of game boards, but no terrain to go on it. You do get some tokens, which is useful to play with, but you could not play with this out of the box. This is not the thing to buy as a beginner in particular. It does, you're getting the Shadow Hunt dossier, which is a rule book, but the rules are included here are really expansions to the existing rules. This is a level up from your typical vanilla rules. It includes basically 2 game boards for playing a whole new game mode where you could play across. Basically, it's I think it's called Descent, where you could go from one board to the other as you're basically going down.
That seems a bit complicated.
I don't think it is beginner friendly. Some of the other boxes, though, for instance, the Tomb World box. This one, this is a bit more in that sort of way. I mean, you would need the rules, which are available on the app to use. But this is basically, you're still getting 2 factions, but you are getting a load of terrain. So this is coming with this slightly different to some of the other formats of play, which is these sort of interlocking rooms that you make with doors between them. Which is true of 2 of the different kill zones that are available. So which are the sort of different game modes or basically the boards you play on almost. So Gallo Dark and Tomb World work in this way. But for that first step, if you bought this box, that would be workable. I mean, you're getting a couple of factions. The app has the rules on it. You've got the terrain you need. You would have to have done a bit of research, though, I think, to find out if this was the right option for you, I would say. This one came with a very nice Deathwatch, though, and the even nicer Canoptek Circle, which I love. I love these models. But also, the Deathwatch, good for a beginner. The Canoptek Circle, I believe, are not that beginner friendly, but that's the thing. So I would probably say, well, these quarterly boxes aren't the way to be starting. If you're going to buy a box, get that starter set. If it's more appropriate for you to be buying just a team and using the app, it's a relatively cheap option, although the starter set isn't much more. But it will be flexible when you get onto those next steps.
That's what I like about the starter set. You get 2 teams, which would usually cost £80. Then you also get a bad terrain, but still terrain. Yeah. You get a map.
Yeah, you get your game board, which is actually pretty sturdy quality as well. It's pretty good quality, isn't it?
You get some good stuff, and you're saving about a good £30. So
yeah, exactly. It's a really good option. I think the big problem, like I say, is that you might outgrow that stuff. It's you might then you're going to quite quickly go, I want to play as different teams now. You're like, I want to go and get a team that's a bit more.
Exactly what we did.
Yeah, it's exactly what we did.
We played 2 games.
Played 2 games of the start set and said, right, what's next?
Yeah. Well, we didn't even buy the thingy set before we started wanting to buy things.
Yeah.
But I was stood with you looking at while you were buying stuff. I was stood on the
Yeah,
Killteam
yeah.
shelf looking at all the teams.
Yeah, you wanted a Death Watch, didn't you? Which you still
Yeah.
haven't got, actually. But I'm sure we will pick that up for you at some stage. Birthday coming along soon, Matthew. So, you know.
That's why I mixed the two earlier, Deathwing.
And
I want them
Murderwing.
both.
Deathwing and Murderwing, they are your two favourites, aren't they?
They're both quite similar as well.
Yeah. Anyway, so that is level 1. So level 1 is based on that first step, what you go out and buy when you first want to get into it. Once you've done a few games, you know, or a good few games, and you're sort of like thinking, I want to start moving on a bit and sort of, you know, diversifying a little bit with things. I think that probably the key things that you want to be picking up at that stage are going to be, you're going to want the core book. So the core book is the actual rule book, really, I say, because it's very, you know, you've got the rules on the app, you've got the rules in the starter set, you've got the rules in the core book. The core book includes some rules that aren't in the other options, so the light version of the rules on the app or the starter set. There are various rules that are not included in those options, so if you're going to want to go to a tournament, you're going to need to be buying this, or at least getting some sort of way of understanding it. And you know, it's also, I would say, for me, this is the best summary of the rules to use while I'm actually playing a game. The app that I mean, I'm 45, using that, you know, I'm too old for this business. I want a book. You know, youngsters are probably fine to just leaf through the app to find a bit of the rules they want.
Exactly what I do.
Yeah, exactly what Matthew does. For me, though, I find this is the most condensed version of the rules. It's the most easy to use while you're actually in a game. It is worth having, I think. Although, my friend Peter, who is, I'll probably mention this before, but 21st in the UK, I think last time I asked him, because he plays a lot of tournaments, stuff like that. He doesn't, I don't think he's even got the core book. I think, but then he probably just knows the rules. He's probably played it.
Yeah, he'll got it in his mind.
He's already got it in his mind. He doesn't need this. Whereas I need sort of, I'm going, what does lethal mean?
Oh, yeah.
You know, so I need to use all the summaries.
There's a few you remember, but then there's a few you forget that don't show up that much. Like piercing, that's always showing up. But then lethal too, what does that mean? So
the other thing you're going to need as you sort of start to progress is the approved ops card pack. This is what you need if you're going to be playing in a tournament or at a games club. It's often sort of, you know, what people are tending to sort of, you know, think, you know, suggest they need. Basically what it is a load of cards. This has various different missions, equipment, you know, those sorts of things. Basically, it increases the complexity of the game. I would say give it a good few games of just using the basic rules, you know, what's on the app and what's the starter set version of the rules before you get into this. But it really does add, you know, a lot more flavour to the games. It makes it a lot more tactical because a lot of it's about what equipment you take and different mix of it. You know, this is where you get your complexity in there. So, you know, this is something you're going to be wanting to pick up at some points along the way. Just so if you're wanting to get into playing in tournaments and stuff like that, you know, this isn't an immediate purchase, and at the stage you buy this, you know, is up to you really. If you're just enjoying playing the normal rules, just stick to the normal rules. That's fine as well. So the key ones at current are the Killzone Tomb World, Killzone Volcus, Killzone Beta Decima, and Killzone Galodar.
Which one do we usually use?
So we use Volcus. Yeah. So Volcus is basically ruined terrain, which has multiple levels. So you have 2 or 3 levels going up. So you've got a platform on all these buildings.
I mean, technically, you have 3.
You do have 3. You are right. You have 3.
Tiny little bit.
Yeah, there is one tiny little ledge which you can prop a man onto. So this one is your sort of vanilla terrain, I would say. This is what, and also, for me, it's giving you that most balanced sort of terrain. You know, this is what you expect of a game of Killteam. You know, lots of different sorts of things, obscuring viewpoints at least, raised terrain, so you could be shooting down on people. You know, you're getting all that with this terrain. That is your vanilla option, basically. The most recent one to come out was Tomb World. So I mentioned this earlier. Tomb World is a set of interlocking terrain with different rooms. Apparently this gives a really different dynamic to the game. It can be very beginner friendly, I think Peter was telling me. So
it would be because there's no levels and stuff to the buildings.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some quite neat rules with it, by all accounts. I quite like the fact it reminds me a bit of Space Hulk. So, that's the thing.
Also, it gives a lot of close combat, which on Vulcans you don't really see a lot of, do you? It's a lot of shooting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a similar, similar to that is Gallowdark. So Gallowdark, very similar concept, interlocking rooms.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently the rules for Tomb World refined the rules for Gallowdark, actually improved a lot of it. So probably if you really want the interlocking rooms, then Tomb World's the one to go for. Gallowdark, apparently, I mean, from what I remember when it was released, is people saying that the rooms didn't lock together very readily, which made it a bit of a pain.
What does readily mean?
Readily, easily. So people have to sand down the joins between the rooms to make it easy to slot them together.
It's posh.
And you've also got Beta Decima, which is a platform with lots of different platforms
That
and
cannot
sort
be
of.
fun to play on.
Well, I don't know much about it, to be honest. I've never tried it. It's a bit older now, so not a lot of people are using this. So it's
Vulcus and the Tomb World seem like the best two.
I think Vulcus is the one that most people are playing. It's what we're playing. We have that terrain.
It's even the one Peter got us to use, isn't it?
Yeah, Peter was trying to talk me into Tomb World, though. He was saying that it is a good option to go for as well. So that is another one you could go with. I mean, essentially, you don't have to buy this terrain. I'm sure there is 3D printed equivalents available as well if that's what you wanted to do.
He's saying that because that's what we've got.
Yeah, I might have that as well. But if what you're wanting to do at home is to be playing, playing on terrain, you're going to need some terrain on these lines. There are official configurations of this terrain, which come with the approved ops cards. They might come in the boxes for each one of these as well. But basically, they show you how to lay out the terrain in the approved way. It will give you a balanced game. The idea is they've played a lot of games with lots of different factions on it to make sure it has all that balance you need. So if you're wanting a nice balanced game, then you could get straight into a nice balanced game using this terrain. So the other thing you might want are the team cards. So this is an example of the Wolf Scouts data cards, which is basically, it's giving you a summary of the rules for each of your members of your team, which can be quite useful in the battle. So, you can basically play in the battle, you've got your cards in front of you, and so you can see all the rules. I think one of the downsides, these rules are all available on the app, so the data cards are on the app. If you're like Matthew, I bought him the data cards for Wolf Scouts. He never uses them because he uses the app, which works just as well for him. For me, I quite like having them. One of the big problems though is that on the app, if they do a balance update, which they often do, they do one every quarter, they might change some of the rules for a team and tweak the rules. If you've got the cards, however, obviously they're not getting the tweak because they're a piece of paper which doesn't change. So a piece of card doesn't change. So, you're not going to have the most up-to-date version of the rules.
They've invented a new type of card that changes.
So each card is like a mini tablet.
Yeah.
Yeah, with digital data. No, it doesn't feel feasible to me. So the team cards are really optional. I would personally, I bought 3 sets of these. I sort of regret it because they, you have other options for getting this stuff. You don't need to go and buy these. Although what I would say is there's 2 of you who's playing. You're going to need to buy, if you don't buy the individual cards which have all the universal equipment cards in, you're going to need 2 sets of the approved ops cards because you've only got 1 set of the equipment in there, for instance. So you're going to, and 1 set of each of the missions. So if it's between 2 of you, like the 2 of us, I would need to buy 2 sets of those. Although if you just have, if you have the cards like this, for the team, you do get like the equipment cards in there and so on. So, it maybe saves you a purchase. I would say really non-essential. Buy them if you really like having something like that. Buy them. I think I could have saved myself 40 quid by not buying those for the ones I bought. And the last thing you might want is some lovely dice like these, which I bought. These are not official dice. So basically, there are Killteam dice. The key thing they have is the 6 is replaced by a symbol. In this case, a chaos symbol. So
it doesn't change anything, by the way.
It doesn't change anything. It's just a dice. You can use whatever dice you want. The thing I like about these though is that when you're playing the game, if you roll a crit, which is a 6, which has its own loads of rules are based on crits, i.e. rolls a 6,
especially with Wrecker Crew.
Yeah, with the Wrecker Crew where you want to get a 6 to get a Wrecker point. having that special symbol is really nice. These were non-official ones. You can buy the official ones, which are like 20 quid for a pack, which is a pack of 10, I think, or 8.
He works with Game Workshop. He's trying to get you to spend money.
Well, no, I'm saying it's quite a lot of money, to be honest. I got a big set of them for like 8 quid off of Amazon.
No, it doesn't mind. You still mind.
Well, yeah, these are yours. Actually, these just happened to be sat next to me actually when I came to this section, so I just thought I'd sort of bring them out. But yeah, I bought some off Amazon. They're really good. Do the job. Just as good, really. If you want to go fancy, get those. As a beginner, I would say you don't need to go and get the special dice for each team. That is a thing.
We did it,
I would say the team cards and the special dice really are not very essential. Your essentials are things. You need to have some dice. And you need to have the rules, but the rules are available on the app. This lots we've talked about. Anyway, I think that covers everything we wanted to cover. I mean, that will take you to the stage of play where you are playing. You could go to a tournament with the stuff that we've talked about at that second level. You have what you need then at that stage to take you towards a intermediary level, I would say. You're getting out of that beginner phase and into intermediate ability, and at that point it's a whole different question, and I wouldn't say I'm much further past that, but what I really want to talk
we're not
about
past it, Dad. We're not past it.
We are absolutely not past the beginner phase. It's just but I wanted to talk about this, because we've had this journey and we've done there's been a lot of thinking about it as to the best way to come at this. The route we took, we bought the starter box. I mean, that's what we did. We got the starter box almost immediately. We had a demo game with Peter.
The first thing we got.
It was. Well, we had the demo game with Peter, and then he handed me the starter box and said, buy this. I went, okay, Peter, I'll buy this, and bought it. And it was really, really helpful. But
maybe he works for Games Workshop.
He is a proper plastic pusher. He really is. He's a proper plastic pusher. But yeah, anyway, so
are you, though.
I'm not a plastic pusher.
You're a money pusher. What you do is you take me out to a shop. You have more money than me because you have a job.
That is true.
So you buy tons of things, which makes me feel sad. So I buy a bunch of things with my limited money.
And that is sort of plastic pushing, but it's peer pressure, actually. That's what it's all about.
Because I don't get that much a month, and I'll see someone. Oh, I'm going to save that. Then you're like, oh, Matthew, you want to go to the other game?
I'll be honest, Matthew. You've got more disposable income than me. All I would say is, if you didn't waste all your money on Robux or whatever whatever it is.
Dad thinks I'm 5.
Yeah, he plays other games, doesn't play Roblox anymore. Equivalent to whatever a game is. Anyway, there we go. It's been a long enough video as it is. But yeah, hopefully that's been of some help, us give you a bit of guidance. I should say there's a lot of really good content on YouTube, so go and have a look. The thing that I found, though, is a lot of the content is done by experts for beginners, which can be valuable, but I thought this would be very nice to give a beginner's perspective on what worked for us, what didn't, because I don't think experts will tell you all these things and they're not necessarily the best. Peter was a great guide, actually, because he's built a club, and so he's been getting a lot of people into the game.
He's getting beat, by the way.
Yeah, I would say Matthew beats me quite a lot, so here we are.
I think you beat me once.
I beat you once, but
and it was because you were doing the thing that you weren't allowed to do in the rules.
That's not true. Matthew had the rules wrong, but here we are. Anyway, I think that's that. That covers everything. What have we got to say to the viewers, Matthew?
Bye, don't forget to subscribe.
Bye.